Today is April 22nd, 2025. In this video forecast for the evening, we're going to be talking about severe weather heading through this week with damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes. And then in the long range into next week, a more substantial outbreak of severe weather right in the central United States with all hazards, again, damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes. And then we look at the early May forecast as well later on in the video. So if you are here, make sure to subscribe to my channel for the latest accurate and reliable weather information on YouTube. Make sure to like the video, give it a thumbs up, and share this video with friends, family, and on social media. I do really appreciate it. So let's look at our severe weather risk over the next couple of days. Here's today, Tuesday, April 22nd. The main risk of severe weather in the yellow, that's a slight risk, level 2 out of 5, from Kansas into western Oklahoma and West Texas, including parts of the Texas Panhandle. And then as we go into tomorrow on Wednesday, April 23rd, we're seeing severe weather again across West Texas with that yellow area. That's a slight risk 2 out of 5. In the dark green, that's a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk extending up into the central high plains and into parts of the Midwest like Iowa. And then into Thursday, April 24th, again, it's West Texas again into west central Oklahoma and southern Kansas with that marginal risk of severe weather there on Thursday. So let's look here under the lens at the severe weather risk this evening that is continuing. We have a slight risk of severe weather from near Wichita down here into western Oklahoma near the Woodward, Kansas, Woodward, Oklahoma region into the Amarillo area, Lubbock, all the way to Midland and Wichita Falls, Odessa. All these areas down here in West Texas are included in this. Damaging winds and large hail are the primary hazards, but a couple of tornadoes will be possible. And here you go. We have some isolated to widely scattered supercells from southern Kansas into western Oklahoma and far west Texas. And this does include the Texas Panhandle as we go through this evening. This is at 7 o'clock. And then as we go into the 10 o'clock hour, notice those storms will start slowly meandering further off to the east. Isolated thunderstorms also developing up toward the Midwest, toward Iowa. We're going to be keeping an eye on that. And then after midnight, a lot of those storms up there into Iowa are going to continue to train over the same areas, dumping some heavy rainfall. So a localized flooding threat will be possible up there. And then those storms across North Texas will take a run at the west side, at least, of the DFW Metroplex there in Dallas-Fort Worth at around 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe waking up to a downpour or two on your way to work or school in Dallas-Fort Worth tomorrow morning around 7 a.m. Same thing up here into, say, Cedar Rapids, Dubuque, Rockford, Chicago, Peoria. Some of those areas could be a little wet to start your Wednesday morning. Then we go into Wednesday, another slight risk of severe weather in far west Texas. There in yellow, a marginal risk extending up into Oklahoma, Kansas, the Front Range in eastern Colorado, even as far west as Wyoming there in southeastern Wyoming, south central Nebraska up into Iowa, watching out for that, northwestern Missouri. Main hazards, again, will be damaging winds and hail, but a couple of tornadoes will be possible. A 2% chance of tornadoes there from Kansas southward all the way into southwest Texas. So we'll be keeping an eye on that for tomorrow. Starting off tomorrow morning, we got a cluster of showers and storms across Iowa, southern Wisconsin, and northern Illinois to start your day. We also have a cluster of storms in north central and eastern Texas, and those storms will kind of weaken as we go through the day, but initiation of new storms will develop during the heat of the afternoon, and those could be the ones to produce more damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes. Notice a MCS, a mesoscale convective system, on the HRRR model here at 18Z, actually developing near the Nebraska-Kansas state line and dropping southeast into the better instability there through central Kansas. If that were to verify, we would probably have an upgrade to a slight risk sometime tomorrow here into portions of Kansas and even Nebraska. We'll keep an eye on that. But just in general, through the rest of the week, going into Thursday and into Friday and Saturday, we're going to continue to see some thunderstorm activity, mainly during the daytime heating around mid-afternoon or so. By 3 o'clock. They'll fall apart by 9 o'clock in the evening as the sun sets here, and we'll do it all over again here on a daily basis through the rest of the week. And eventually, the rainfall totals will be adding up in a big way. Could be seeing a couple of inches of rain there across the Great Plains. Central, southern plains is where it's mostly going to be focused, but even the northern plains up here towards South Dakota and Nebraska will be keeping an eye on some heavier downpours through the week. Now, as we go here through the week as well, our warmer temperatures are going to be evident across the eastern and central portion of the United States under the influence of our ridge out here. And notice our temperatures we achieved this afternoon on Tuesday, April 27th or 22nd. 80s further to the south. 90s there into Florida, and then we continue to see the warmth as we go into Wednesday, April 23rd, Thursday, April 24th, Friday, April 25th, and right straight through the weekend there, both Saturday and Sunday, April 26th and April 27th, with the Gulf Coast and Florida really going to be into the summertime heat in the low 90s there for the weekend. So make sure if you're going to the beach down there, pack the sunblock because you're going to need it as we go through the weekend. Speaking of the weekend, we're watching another synoptically favorable storm for severe weather heading into the central United States, and this is going to have its eyes set on the Great Plains as we go into Sunday especially, and this is going to return some moisture there. Not so much on Saturday, but Sunday those dew points will be rising back into the 50s and 60s all the way up perhaps to Nebraska, even South Dakota there on Sunday afternoon and evening, and that is going to lead to the potential for severe weather. Look at our convective available potential energy by Sunday evening here along the dry line. Could be seeing 2,000 in locally 3,000 joules per kilogram the further south you go toward Oklahoma and northwest Texas here, and it's going to come with a little bit of some wind shear with a synoptically favorable jet stream as we go into Sunday. So this is going to create the potential for not only thunderstorms to develop, but once they develop, they'll maintain their intensity and coverage for a long time into Sunday night here. But there is a caveat with that, and that's the capping inversion. We got a lot of drought ongoing across the Great Plains and the Four Corners region, and that is going to potentially put a cap on the atmosphere where we have warm air at the surface and warm air aloft. You need warm air at the surface and cool air aloft to really get those clouds to form, the displacement with the air, and that happens a little bit on Saturday, but Sunday's a question mark. If we do get those right along the dry line there in the western plains, even the Front Range in eastern Colorado, we'll be keeping an eye on the threat for some isolated scattered supercells and very photogenic supercells at that. They would have those rotating wall clouds, potentially a tornado on them, larger hailstones, even some damaging straight line wind gusts. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Overall, the threat looks to be localized for thunderstorms overall this weekend. The more intense storms may be further south towards Texas if they do end up getting going with some heavier rainfall, at least a couple of inches down there. Now, going into early next week, we are keeping tabs on Monday, April 28th here with a more substantial variety of severe weather up toward the Midwest into Iowa, kind of centered across that region, and into Tuesday as well. Right now, the Storm Prediction Center has predictability too low for Tuesday, April 29th, but this is also a day I'd be keeping an eye on if I was in the Midwest, places like Chicago, Des Moines, St. Louis, Kansas City, just something to keep an eye on as we go into Tuesday, April 29th, because this trough is going to be ejecting from the plains as we see it on Sunday, but into Monday, Tuesday towards the Mississippi Valley and the upper Midwest, and it's going to be bringing plenty of dynamics with it. We look on Monday, April 28th, plenty of moisture, dew points in the 60s, all the way up there into Minnesota and Wisconsin. Instability, very strong, probably the strongest and most widespread instability we have seen this spring season, all the way up there to the Twin Cities with 2,000 joules per kilogram of instability and a favorable jet stream overlapping those dynamics here. So wind shear, moisture, and instability is going to be very favorable. So I think thunderstorms and supercells would be favored from the upper Midwest all the way to the southern plains here, from Minnesota, Wisconsin, all the way to Texas and central Texas. So a wide area of potential severe weather on Monday. And if that's not enough, as we go into Tuesday, April 29th, moisture all the way up to Michigan, even southern Ontario with 50, 60 degree dew points, even some 70s dew points down here toward the lower Mississippi Valley. That will yield again another widespread reservoir of instability as we go into Tuesday afternoon next week. And over top of that, the overlap of moisture, instability, and wind shear is strongest from the Great Lakes into the Midwest and perhaps into the Central Plains, a little bit displaced down here in the lower Mississippi Valley. You have the instability, but you don't have a lot of that wind shear. You get a glancing blow of the jet stream. So I do think further south, while you could have more intense storms, I think they'll be more short-lived because the wind shear is not as strong, while areas further north into the Midwest, the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes may have maybe some organized severe weather, but maybe not as intense as what you would would see further south with the instability. So we'll kind of have to work through that. But overall, going through the rest of April here, going through Thursday, May 1st, heavy rains from the central into the eastern U.S. And if you get some heavy rainfall, localized flooding would be possible with a few rounds of rain as we go through that time frame. Now, as we enter into the new month of May, the first 6 or 7 days of May, we have a ridge that's out east now, will kind of retrograde further west and then be centered over the Rockies as we go into the first week of May. We got a trough up here in the Aleutian Islands, also lowering heights down here near the Gulf Coast, and that may bring some more rain prospects to you as well. So let's look here at the early May 8 to 14 day temperature outlook from around May 1st or so through May 6th. The warmest of our air will be across the northwest U.S., so the Pacific Northwest, the northern Rockies, and then out east toward the mid-Atlantic there, and then a little bit warm in between towards the Mississippi Valley. A little bit below normal with our temperatures in West Texas and near normal from Arizona, New Mexico, into Central Texas. And we look at early May from May 1st to the 6th. It looks like above average rains are favored for Texas, New Mexico, areas that desperately need the rain, and then further east there as well. Unfortunately, areas that don't need the rain like Arkansas, portions there of Missouri, especially southeast Missouri and West Tennessee and western Kentucky. Those areas really don't need the rainfall, but we have above average rains in those areas as well, and we'll be drying out across the west and across the Pacific Northwest as we go through the first week of May. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like the video down below, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel for the latest accurate and reliable weather information, and I'll see you all in the next update.